If you're anything like me, you watch players who are better than you to try and improve at the games that you play. Sometimes it's for seeing how they physically press the button, sometimes it's to see how they position, sometimes it's to see how they play around timers and things like that, and sometimes it's figuring out how their brain ticks when it comes to making their builds to try and improve your knowledge of in-game items, and that's kind of what this video is going to be about. If you watch higher level play, be it streamers who are in Ascendant and Eternus and stuff like that, or even things like Deadlock Night Shift, you'll have probably noticed a lot of T2 items being bought that you might not see in your games. A lot of items like these that you see in front of you. This video, I'm going to be kind of yapping about why people buy these items, their strengths and weaknesses, and just generally talking about how understanding some of the concepts that people use when building their builds can help you improve as a player in the knowledge department. Let's start with a super obvious point of this conversation. These items are cheap and have very strong effects for a very low amount of souls. Every item that you see in front of you on the screen is only 1600 souls. Another thing that might confuse you about all these items is a lot of these items, in fact, almost all of these items, don't build into anything else. They are just the item that you see. Well, why would you bother to build that item instead of an item that builds into another one? It's because 1600 souls is not a very big investment to get an item online. Being able to go to the shop more often and hit small incremental power spikes means that you never have to go through a point of the early game where you are just saving money to massively improve your build. It means you're ready to fight at every opportunity. Now, why do these higher level players, why do these players in organized play, why do they do that? It's because at those levels, you need to be ready to fight at all times, because everything is worth fighting over at the highest levels of play in most games. Every small camp that someone tries to steal, if you're sitting on 2400 souls saving up for a 3200 item, you are less powerful than the person who bought a 1600 item and is sitting on 800 unused souls. It is quite literally just basic math, which I know that most of my community is very unhappy with the existence of math, but we're playing a MOBA, you gotta know math. Now, there are other items in this conversation that you can see right here where they are something that you'll still see people get, so let's talk about them really quick because they are probably more of an exception than the rule. Why do you see Headshot Booster into Headhunter built all the time? Why do you see Spirit Strike into Spirit Snatch, Sprint Boots into Veil Walker? It's because these first items are a very worthwhile effect to buy almost immediately into any game. 45 bonus headshot damage in lane, when people don't break the 1000 health mark until quite a bit into the laning phase, means that you're taking away a 20th of their health bar every time you fight someone and actually land a headshot. Headhunter is a wonderful item that gives you incredible stats, and I know that you might think 5% weapon damage and 50 bonus health isn't that great. It also has 3200 weapon investment, let's not forget that. That by default gives you 75 bonus headshot damage and heals you 4% of your HP per time you headshot somebody. That scales with your level, making this item good throughout the entire game. Similar stuff with things like Spirit Strike, where it gives you flat damage, but then it gives you Shred, and Spirit Snatch giving you that flat damage, but even better Shred and Spirit Power Steal. Sprint Boots giving you movement and out of combat regen, turning into something as powerful as Veil Walker, which gives you that, plus health, plus Spirit Power, plus a chunky heal that scales with your level as you walk through Veils, making you invisible at the same time. These items are kind of the exception to that you're probably just buying 1600 items rule, simply because of the amount of power coming from these items. And that's why these are all the types of things that you see more often when it comes to actually spending that 3200 souls. It's because you can buy that powerful T1 that'll last you through the early game, and you can upgrade it when that T1 starts falling off. 3200 items aside, I just had to get that out there because otherwise I'm sure I'll get people yelling about how certain 3200 items are always worth it because you can build a T1 into them. Let's talk about the 1600 items like the point of this video is though. Let's talk about Mystic Shot. Mystic Shot's a great example of an item that you are always happy to have as a type of spirit carry or spirit support. Characters like Viscus and Mina love this item. Both of them are predominantly spirit heroes at the moment. Neither one of them is typically building into too much gun besides maybe 1 or 2 items. Flat spirit power on an item is just good for both of them, and having extra burst thrown into their kit is just good for both of them. Viscus likes to be able to throw a goo ball and double bounce someone for like 300 to 400 damage in the mid to late game. throwing on a Mystic Shot proc that'll also do another 150 to 200 damage. Very good thing. Mina's a character that likes to dive and chase you down to proc your bites by shooting you with a lot of bullets and then hitting you with a rake for even bigger damage. Rake does more damage the lower you are. You add a little bit of extra base damage up front to your burst with Mystic Shot, doing a little spirit damage proc for 150 damage in the mid game. You're going to be real happy as a Mina, and you'll be much closer to killing people as you chase them down. On the kind of other end of that burst damage spectrum, you'll sometimes see characters like Venator go for an item like Opening Rounds. Not as much lately, but they used to go for this item before it got several nerfs in a row. And it's because your weapon damage on targets above 50% health getting a buff is almost always good. This is a really good investment item for a lot of characters. I know Warden will often still go this because of all the extra bullet velocity, as a way to bridge them through their not as powerful early game to get them to that stage of the game where they pop ult and no one can kill them. Stalker's a great example in kind of a similar vein to Mystic Shot. It's that extra bursty bit of damage, but this is better for characters like Billy and Calico, who want to be running at people. That bullet resist, shred, that damage per second, and that extra move speed that you get at the end there are all things that make it so that you're just a deadly threat. And you'll notice that all of these are things that I say are pretty good to help through the early to mid game. It's because that's the point of these items. That's what they do. Same with stuff like Intensifying Magazine and Active Reload. They have tons of great and powerful stats on them, but they fall off once you hit the mid game. But that's okay. That's not the point of these items. These items are to make it so that you are a prevalent, relevant threat in the early game. That is a good thing. The damage items probably make sense to most people, though. That's not the part that gets people confused sometimes. Let's look at the green and the purple, and then potentially these movement items here next, though. You'll see Battle Vest and Enchanter's Emblem all the time. It's because they're offense items in disguise. It's not hard to stay above 65% HP. Getting 15 spirit power and 5% ability reduction when you're healthy is insane. Getting 18% weapon damage and 7% fire rate is insane. These items give massive buffs for super early in the game that help towards your green investment, and on top of that, they are basically damage items hiding as a green item. Believe it or not, Healbane is also in that category. Now, that might be a shocking thing for people to hear, that Healbane is a damage item disguise. It gives 7 spirit power. You know what else gives 7 spirit power? Mystic Shot. Mystic Shot's gotten its spirit power nerfed because of how good it was, and Healbane has the same amount of spirit power. Also on top of that, it's offense in disguise because that 275 HP heal on hero kill means that if you're in a team fight and your team is getting kills and assists, while you have people tagged, you're going to be healing yourself back to like full HP because of how much Healbane heals in the early game. Meaning that you can more aggressively fight and more aggressively play because you go from 200 HP to 475 HP. Spirit Shielding and Weapon Shielding, I think people have finally come around on them being good items. It's one of those things where they seem underwhelming at first, but then you realize how easy it is to proc these items. 250 damage is not very much weapon damage. 225 spirit damage is not very much spirit damage. And then it gives you a 300 barrier that scales with your level and gives you a chunk of resist equal to an Enchanter's Emblem or a Battle Vest. If the enemy team has bursty characters that you're worried about killing you out of nowhere, these make you almost unkillable to them in the early game. They might have Intensifying Magazine, Active Reload Opening Rounds, but if you have weapon shielding, you get hit, you get an extra 300 HP and extra 18% bullet resist, they're not killing you. You're just going to live through it most of the time, unless they have help. Restorative Locket is actually going to get its own talking point here, because it is that impactful of an item in mid to high level play, simply because of the effect that the item gives. If you don't know how the item works, when an enemy uses an ability within 35 meters, you store a stack. You consume all stacks with an active ability to heal yourself and replenish up to 3 stamina based on how many stacks you have. Thanks for the dramatic music cue, game. This item is powerful as fuck. This item has been adjusted, nerfed, and changed based on just how good this is at the highest levels of play, between organized play, tournament play, what have you. In that type of play, people are more often fighting with their team, meaning that this item stacks itself up faster. Playing yourself down in brick tier, you're probably not going to have everybody grouped up and fighting quite as often as you see up in Ascendant or Eternus, right? And because of that, this item stacks itself up so much faster because people are all spamming abilities and fighting more often. What's the other reason this item is so good? There's a lot of characters who use it really well. Celeste, Apollo, Lash, Holiday, Mina. These are all characters that are quite strong. Lots of high-level players play them and use and abuse Resto Locket on them. Think of the fact that Celeste is already so hard to catch. Think of a Celeste that has 6 stam from Stam Mastery and then can get 3 extra stam from a Resto Locket now. Lash is already dashing around using their grapple to get around. Now imagine they could get 3 extra stam out of nowhere. Same for Amina, same for a Holiday, same for an Apollo. This item takes characters that have high movement skills and high movement skill caps in terms of you are a better player when you understand their movement. And it takes them from being really good to you're never catching them unless you're organized at catching them. Why do you think the item's gotten nerfed so many times? Bullet Resist Shredder and Suppressor are 2 very efficient items that I'm shocked I don't see being bought more. Bullet Resist Shredder shreds bullet resist by 10% and gives you bullet resistant weapon damage. Put this on a Gun Lash, put this on a Geist. They're going to win every 1v1 against gun carries in the early to mid game. On top of their pretty okay base bullet damage, getting the extra bullet resist and bullet resist shred themselves, as well as the extra weapon damage, they're just never losing that. Speaking of a thing that makes you never lose against gun carries, though, Suppressor. I'm astounded this item isn't bought more because it is just so efficient for what you get. 6 spirit power, 8% bullet resist, and slowing people's fire rate by 28% on an effect that is very easily refreshable because you just have to do spirit damage. I see this bought by 7s sometimes, but outside of that, I don't see it bought very often. When I imagine that on characters like Mirage, this item means that you never lose a gunfight. On characters like Doorman, you take the fact that you make it so that people can't even aim, and then they just shoot slower in the first place. The item's great. I'm astounded it's not being bought more often. Last tiny bit of conversation here is Kinetic Dash and Arcane Surge. These items you see bought but sold more often, and it's because they're stopgaps. A lot of these items are things that can't really be recreated until you have like a 6400 item to replace it. Kinetic Dash and Arcane Surge are very much stopgap items. Kinetic Dash gives you fire rate and extra ammo every time you dash, and it's really good in the early to mid game, especially on characters who want to make sure that they apply some form of buff or debuff with their gun. But once you get outside the mid game and the early game, the item does fall off pretty fast. 25% fire rate and 6 ammo is not that crazy. Now, I will say there's a slight exception to this. I've seen Kinetic Dash Arcane Surge be bought on Geists before, and it means that after you jump dash, you are, like, unfightable. Until probably, like, 25 minutes, you become, like, unfightable. That extra fire rate and extra buffs to your spirit abilities make you really hard to deal with. And I will say that Arcane Surge is definitely more of a stopgap than Kinetic Dash, though. Ability range, duration, and spirit power means that you just buff that one ability that makes your kit better. Think Geist putting it on their Drain Life. Think Abrams putting it on their Siphon Life. Think Viscous putting it on their Cube or their Goo Ball. This is just a way to buff an ability early that otherwise takes several items to get several similar effects. Alt Warden uses this item incredibly well. Did you know that 12% ability range, 50% ability duration, and 20 spirit power on a massive AoE ultimate is pretty good? That's it. That's the video. It's just me yapping about how good these items are. I hope you learned something. I hope you realize why people buy these items, and I hope you mentally clicked with the concept that you don't have to buy an item because it's the item you're going to have at the end of the game. You can buy items in Deadlock because they are good now, and they help you now, and if you don't buy it now, you're not going to get good use out of your money. Thanks for hanging out and watching. Hope you all liked this video. If you want to see more content like this, let me know. I'll try and pull some stuff up, get some stuff rolling. But thanks for hanging out and watching. Y'all are all cool, and I appreciate you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to catch you all in the next one.